My name is Peter, and I live with my grandparents, who live in a smaller town due to financial reasons. Anyways, I would always check the mail for my grandparents because of the disability my grandpa had. I was only 14 years old when this incident took place, but I remember going outside and checking the mail, and then I saw the mailman staring at me. I then said, "Is everything okay?" I got no response and began to check the mail until I looked again and did not see the mailman. I then got creeped out and went into the house. A few weeks went by and I thought it was just my imagination. So I went outside to check the mail and saw the mailman again. He just stared at me as I stared at him. As the mailman then began to make his way towards me, I ran into the house, shut and locked the door. I told my grandpa, "I think the mailman is a bad guy." To which my grandpa said, No, the mailman's a good guy." I then started to call 911 as I waited for the cops to pick up, which they did. They said no harm was done, so there was nothing they could do about it. I was so frustrated and started to think to myself, am I going crazy? As I did my chores and took out the trash, I could see the mailman's vehicle parked inside my driveway. I then tossed the trash and began to run inside the house. As the mailman popped out the bushes, which were beside the house, the mailman then said, "Shh, everything's gonna be okay." I then started to panic and scream for help, but nobody came. I then began to fight back hard as I could, but the mailman just tossed me into his mailman truck, which he began to drive away. As I banged on the window trying to get help, I saw a cop which was nearby. He was right behind us. The cop then put his light on, demanded for the mailman to pull over. I was so happy because the cop saw me through the window. As the cop then said, "Can we search the vehicle?" The mailman driver just said, "Sure, but it'll be a waste of time, officer." The cops then searched the vehicle and saw me. I was so happy. I was saved. As the mailman then was arrested, I was taken back to my grandparents. But still to this day, I get nightmares of this situation because who knows what this man was going to do to me if the cops didn't show up when they did. Me and my younger brother lived with my mom at the time when this horrible memory took place. My mom was always at work, so she was working long hours. So me and my younger brother Peter would always do the chores, keeping the house clean. But we would always get a package delivered earlier to our house because before anyone, due to the mailman, which was our next door neighbor. The days the mailman would work, we would be the first to get the packages that we would order from online. This was cool, I used to think, until I noticed something that nobody else would believe. It was one night I was going downstairs to get a glass of water when I noticed the mailman's window was open. We both could see through each other's house as the mailman then brought in a younger kid who looked as if he had been drugged out or something, and then told his wife to put this kid down there with the rest. I'll deal with him when I get back. The wife then nodded and grabbed the kid and started to take him to the basement, I guess. The mailman then closed his curtains as if someone was watching him. I began to call 911 and then asked. The cops then said, What's the problem, sir?" I then told the cops, trying to explain to him I think my neighbor, who is the mailman, is kidnapping kids and drugging them. The cops kind of laughed and didn't take me seriously at all, which this made me kind of mad. They then said they would send somebody out to check. I then said, "Okay, the address is..." The cops hung up. I was really ignored and tried to call back, but nobody picked up. So I waited for my mom to get home and tried to tell her. She said, "I'll call the police in the morning, son. Get some sleep." I told her that it was urgent, but she did not bicker. I then told my younger brother Peter to not trust the mailman, and I gave him my reasons why. The next morning, the cops were at the mailman's door, and to my surprise, the cops then found 6 kids who were kidnapped and were going to be killed if the mailman was home after the kidnapping. But I still think If I did not tell my mom to call the cops and get the cops' attention, this mailman would have gotten away and nobody would have known or found the missing kids. Everyone has always wanted to be a mailman at some point in time in their life, at least thought about it once or twice. Well, I was laid off from my job working as a janitor for public schools around the small town I lived in. I went job hunting and came across a mailman janitor. I then applied, and to my surprise, I was accepted for this job title. But I did not want to take this job, which, if I'm being honest, I wish I never even accepted this job, due to the terrifying event that occurred. It was my first day working as a janitor for the post office, and there was a guy named Jeff, who was the mailman's leaders. I cleaned up what I needed to be cleaned up, and just asked if I could stay over to help him with the truck, which he would double the amount of money for overtime. I then accepted the offer because I needed the money, but I would soon regret this decision that I made. Jeff then said, "We have a late night truck that has some heavy packages." I started to ask why the packages are heavy, but I stopped myself and just listened to my boss, Jeff. As I waited for the truck to get there, I went to the lunchroom to get a quick meal I would eat until the truck would get there. As I finished my meal, I then went to the back to get ready for the truck. I then asked Jeff, "Hey, when's the truck going to be here?" Jeff then said, "Here soon, not too long from now." I then waited patiently. The truck then arrived at the post office, where it was all in the back. We all went to the back to load up the truck. After loading up the truck, there was a spill inside the mailroom, which was where you would keep the mail. And I started to clean up the spill, but the spill did not smell good. It had a bad smell. I mean, like a human dead body smell. I thought to myself. I then cleaned up the mess and was confused why the smell was so strong. I then told Jeff, "Hey, we might need a better cleaner because this smell is getting out." Jeff then said, "Sure, I can get the best cleaning bottle we have here." As Jeff then gave me the cleaning bottle, he then started to stare at me. I did not realize what was really going on and what the smell could have been. I just did my job and got rid of the smell and began to shut the mailroom door until I heard a scream from the room door I was shutting. I then opened the door and could see that there was a room inside the mailroom, and the door was boarded up with nails and heavy objects in front of it that I could not lift. I then went to the bathroom and started to call the cops. On the phone with the cops, I then got hit in the head with something. I want to say it was a wrench or a hammer or something, but I cannot really remember well. I woke up in a room with dead bodies hanging. And there was a female who was about my age who was crying and said to me, "We would not be escaping." I then called the police on my phone, which I had to repeat myself to the police more than once due to the bad service I was getting in the room we were in. The cops then said they'd be on their way and to stay calm. As the cops arrived, the cops then opened the door and arrested Jeff, who was part of this sick killing he would do to the new employees. So he did not have to pay him more money out of his pocket. Still to this day, I wonder if the man did not leave my phone, I would have been hurt. Or even worse, killed.